to SparkTG's contact center solution demo. What you see on your screen right now is the login page of the administration portal. Soon as we log in, we land on the Supervisor Dashboard. Right at the top, we see the business hours, which can be pre-configured by us. This would ensure that appropriate message is played during non-business hours time. Next thing we see is the various queues. Over here, we only see the sales queue. However, you can have several other queues like support, accounts payable, accounts receivable, HR, etc. We can also very quickly see how many calls are in the IVR, how many calls are inbound calls, how many calls have been initiated by the agent, total number of calls, the calls where the phone is ringing, the calls where agents are busy, how many agents are free, and total number of missed calls. So depending on the traffic, the supervisor can log in and log out as many agents as possible. So here is a login button that you can quickly click and log in resources. Um, Here we see various agents who are part of the queues. A quick click on this link would give you information about the agent, the name of the agent, his phone number, his availability status, and of course which queue he is part of. Of course, one agent can be part of multiple queues as well. There are a couple of very interesting features here. One is the quiet option, which allows you to monitor ongoing calls without the agent or the customer getting to know about it. There's a whisper option, which allows you to pass on information to an agent in an ongoing call without the customer getting to know about it. So from here, we will quickly move on to the agent dashboard. Agent dashboard basically would give us some very good options. The very obvious one is the make call option, where you click on make call, put in a customer's phone number, and then the call gets initiated. Here you can also put in use our mini CRM to uh, keep information like the name, address, email ID, and remarks about the customer. The agent can also have a quick look at the last 5 calls that he has made and all the information related to it. Over here, we see that you can have pre-configured breaks for your agents. Those could be a lunch break, tea break, training break, after call work, etc. A quick snapshot of the agent can also be seen with his name, his phone number, and his availability status. One of the options that the agent also gets is to transfer the call from one queue to the other. So for example, some customer has landed up in the sales queue. However, he needs information related to the finance department, and his call can be transferred to accounts payable or accounts receivable. Next, we will quickly look up at a make call page. So over here, as you can see, one only has to put in the customer's phone number and click on the call button. The agent dial first option allows you to ensure that the phone call, once initiated, the ring happens on the agent's phone first, and only once he picks up the phone that the call starts ringing on the customer end. We will now look at the missed call page. Here we can see all the missed calls. So let's try and pull up for the entire month. And we see that the report of all the missed calls that have happened during the course of the month. You can quickly start assigning these missed calls to various agents, and it will start to reflect in their dashboard, and they can start following up on those calls. Alternatively, you can also export the file for your own record. So various information that you can see is where the call came from. So the phone number is very much available. And of course, in the disposition, it is missed call because it wasn't answered. And calls can, of course, be assigned to whichever agent, and then his name would start to show up. There is another feature that we offer. It's called the dialer service, where we can start a campaign. So we can put in a campaign name. Let's say we can do a missed call campaign. We can assign a start time and an end time to it. We can give a description of the campaign where we can say it's a campaign to follow up on all the missed calls for the month. And wrap up time would basically mean how much time you would take between calls to do correct disposition. Agent dial first, as explained earlier, would ensure that the call is first initiated at the agent's phone number, and once he picks up, the call gets initiated on the customer's number. And once you have created the campaign, you can run a campaign, and we will just, earlier I had created one, the missed call campaign, so I'll just use that. And we can upload the Excel file in a CSV format, and we can initiate calls which can automatically start dialing one number after the other, and one or multiple agents can basically cater to those calls. So from here we will quickly jump onto reports. So CDR call detailed report. So if we have to quickly check for a particular agent, the report, so we will just check it for this entire month. And here you can see all the details pertaining to daily call records. So here the agent name comes in, and of course whether it was an inbound call or an outbound call. This is the date and time that the call came in, the duration of the call, and of course the disposition. The IVR input would basically give you information if you have multiple queues. So if the customer has pressed sales or support or accounts payable, accounts receivable, HR, whichever queue he has opted for would be reflected here. Over here we see the recording of the call, which can of course be downloaded as well. From here we move on to the daily summary report. So if we try and pull the daily summary report for the entire month, it gives us the breakup on day-wise breakup basically. So on 1st of July 2018, how many inbound calls were not answered, and then how many outbound calls details are also there, and this is for all the different days during the course of July. Call by month would of course be for a particular month, and so here you can see there are 74 calls, 72 of them were answered, and this is the sum total of all inbound calls. Same goes for outbound calls. There were 108 not answered, 97 were answered, and this is the sum total. Here it's the sum total of all the calls that were made. If there were any calls that were transferred to a different queue, or if there were any calls that were monitored, that would be reflected under these columns. Login and logout report basically gives you the detail of the time a particular agent was logged in or logged out. Similarly, agent performance if I select a particular agent and try to pull out his information this month, basically gives me the information as to all inbound calls that he received, what was the talk time, what were the number of calls that were missed, how many outbound calls were initiated, the entire talk time for the outbound calls, the number of outbound calls that were not answered, inbound and outbound cumulative talk time, and the total number of calls. Next up would be the IVR Data Report, which basically gives you the information as to what queue a particular customer pressed on to arrive at the agent. So in this case, since we only have the sales queue, it is only showing the sales, the value as sales. If, however, if you have different queues like accounts payable, account receivable, etc., those would be reflected under this column. You of course get the information on whether the customer got the voice message or the call was actually answered or not. Of course, also get the phone number from which the call was initiated. We will now quickly move on to processed inbound calls. This basically, apart from everything else, that is the start time, the end time, the duration of the call, and the agent who missed the call or received it, also gives you the location from where the call came in. So this basically gives the administrator a view of a particular geographical location from where the traffic is coming. And so you can tweak your marketing campaigns according to this information. So if in a particular area you're receiving a lot of calls from, maybe that's the area you would like to focus on as far as your marketing campaigns are concerned. Lastly, we will have a quick look at the visual reports. So over here, this is a graphical representation of all the inbound calls which were answered, the inbound calls which were missed, the voice messages, outbound calls which were answered, outbound calls which were not answered, calls which were transferred, and of course, calls which were monitored. I hope this session was useful to you. If you have any more questions, you can always call us at 1-800-300-50150. Alternatively, you can also email us at sales@sparktg.com. Thank you and have a wonderful day.